$38 billion in profit that never existed. Not a single dollar was real. And the most terrifying part? The smartest financial minds on Wall Street believed every word of it. Here's exactly how they pulled it off. In 1985, Kenneth Lay merged two sleepy pipeline companies to form Enron. On paper, it was the most ordinary business in America, moving natural gas through pipes. Revenue was predictable. Growth was slow. Nothing about this company suggested it would become the most notorious corporate fraud in history. But Lay wasn't interested in running a pipeline company. He wanted to build something Wall Street had never seen. And to do that, he needed one very specific person. That person was Jeffrey Skilling, a McKinsey consultant with a radical idea. What if Enron stopped thinking like an energy company and started acting like a bank? Skilling proposed trading energy like a financial commodity. Futures contracts on natural gas, electricity, even internet bandwidth. The potential margins were enormous. The complexity was staggering. And buried inside that complexity was a single accounting rule that would make the entire fraud possible. Skilling convinced the SEC to let Enron use mark-to-market accounting. Here's what that means. Say Enron signs a 20-year gas supply contract. Normally, you'd book revenue as the gas gets delivered year by year. But under mark-to-market, Enron could estimate the entire future value of that contract and book it all as profit immediately. Day one. Before a single molecule of gas had moved through a pipe. That one regulatory approval changed absolutely everything. But there's a poison pill inside mark-to-market accounting. Once you've booked 20 years of profit on day one, what do you show investors next quarter? You need new deals, bigger deals. And each quarter, Wall Street expected growth. Enron found itself trapped on a treadmill that only accelerated. The gap between reported profits and actual cash grew into a canyon. And that's when they crossed the line from aggressive accounting into something much darker. Andrew Fastow, Enron's chief financial officer, and the architect of the most elaborate corporate deception ever constructed. Fastow created special-purpose entities, separate companies on paper, technically independent, but secretly controlled by Enron executives. Their purpose was breathtaking. They existed to buy Enron's failing assets, hide its ballooning debt, and manufacture profits from thin air. These weren't accounting tricks. This was financial engineering at its most dangerous, and Fastow was just getting started. Here's how the trick actually worked. Imagine Enron owns a power plant that's losing money. Instead of reporting that loss, Enron sells the plant to one of Fastow's SPEs, entities with names like JEDI, Chewco, and LJM. The SPE pays full price. On paper, it looks like a profitable sale. But where did the SPE get the money? From Enron's own stock. Enron guaranteed the SPE's debts using its own shares as collateral. They were buying assets from themselves, paying with their own stock, and calling the whole thing profit. The money was circular. The profits were imaginary. But every earnings report looked spectacular. And that's not even the worst part. Fastow's masterpiece was a set of 4 SPEs collectively called the Raptors. Named after the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park and every bit as lethal. The Raptors served one purpose: absorb Enron's investment losses. When tech stocks Enron held dropped in value, the Raptors would swallow those losses, keeping them completely off the company's books. By the year 2000, the Raptors were hiding over $1 billion in red ink. But they had a fatal flaw. The Raptors were backed almost entirely by Enron stock. If the share price ever dropped significantly, the Raptors wouldn't just fail, they'd detonate, and every hidden loss would crash back onto Enron's balance sheet at once. And this is where it gets personal. Fastow wasn't just building these structures for Enron's benefit. He was enriching himself. He served as managing partner of the LJM partnerships, the very entities doing deals with his own employer. This was a staggering conflict of interest. And Enron's board of directors actually voted to waive the company's ethics code to allow it. Fastow personally collected over $45 million from the LJM partnerships. He was profiting from both sides of every single transaction. The fox wasn't just guarding the henhouse, he'd built it, staffed it, and was selling the chickens to himself. But while Fastow was getting rich, Enron's schemes were about to collide with the real world. During the California energy crisis of 2000 and 2001, Enron's traders deliberately manipulated the electricity market. They had strategies with codenames like Death Star, Fat Boy, and Get Shorty. They'd create artificial congestion on power lines, then collect fees to relieve the very bottlenecks they had caused. Rolling blackouts swept across California. Hospitals switched to backup generators. Elderly people died in summer heat waves. And through it all, Enron's trading desk posted record profits. The human cost of their greed was measured in actual lives. But inside Enron's own offices, someone was finally about to speak up. In August 2001, Vice President Sherron Watkins sat down and wrote a 7-page letter to Kenneth Lay. She warned him the company could implode in a wave of accounting scandals. She named the Raptors specifically. She called the SPE structures a ticking time bomb. Lay forwarded her letter to Enron's law firm, Vinson & Elkins. Incredibly, those lawyers concluded nothing was wrong. But the clock was already running out. In October, Enron announced a $618 million quarterly loss. That same week, they disclosed a $1.2 billion reduction in shareholder equity. Wall Street finally started asking the right questions, and the answers were about to obliterate everything. Took 24 days. From October 16th to December 2nd, 2001, Enron went from America's 7th largest company to the biggest bankruptcy filing in American history. The stock plummeted from $90 to 26 cents. $62 billion in shareholder value erased. 20,000 employees lost their jobs overnight. Most had their entire retirement savings locked in Enron stock. Lifetimes of work gone in an instant. The money wasn't hidden somewhere offshore. It had never existed at all. And for the men who built this house of cards, a reckoning was coming. Andrew Fastow received 6 years in prison after cooperating with prosecutors. Jeffrey Skilling got 24 years, among the longest white-collar sentences in history. Kenneth Lay's story ended strangest of all. A jury found him guilty on 10 counts of fraud. He faced decades in prison. But on July 5, 2006, weeks before sentencing, Lay died of a heart attack in Aspen, Colorado. Because he died before sentencing, his conviction was legally vacated. Kenneth Lay, in the eyes of the law, was never found guilty of anything. And Arthur Andersen, the accounting firm that certified every single Enron audit, surrendered its license and ceased to exist. Enron's collapse rewrote the rules of American business. Congress passed the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, the most sweeping accounting reform since the Great Depression. CEOs and CFOs were now required to personally certify their financial statements or face criminal prosecution. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The fundamental tricks Enron pioneered, moving debt off the balance sheet, using complex structures to obscure risk, exploiting the gap between accounting rules and economic reality. None of these techniques disappeared after Enron. 7 years later, nearly identical mechanisms helped trigger the 2008 financial crisis. The lesson Enron taught Wall Street wasn't that fraud doesn't pay. It was that the fraud just needs to be more sophisticated. $38 billion in profits that never existed. Created by people brilliant enough to fool every analyst, every auditor, and every regulator who was supposed to be watching. Enron didn't fail because someone got caught with their hand in the register. They failed because they built an empire entirely on fiction. And fiction always has an expiration date. Eventually, reality comes to collect, and it doesn't negotiate.